Right, we are back with part 20 of the Scott Morrison series, and this one is dedicated to gross evil. This is a poster of 10-year-old Helen Karapidis, and Helen was abducted on the 22nd of December 1988 from her home in Marrickville, Sydney, Australia. To read the account of Helen's disappearance, she was abducted 22nd of December 1988 from her Marrickville home complex grounds by members of the Wood Royal Commission Pedophile Network. This child trafficking network included government social workers, aunties and uncles, program staff, Hillsong architect Ian Longstaff, who redesigned their Young Street Waterloo church building, David Young, who with Ian collected kids to attend Youngies Youth Club, and convicted pedophile and Hillsong staff member John Baxter. Helen attended Hillsong Kids Club. She knew her abductors, which explains why she disappeared so. Hillsong founding pastor Frank Houston was a convicted pedophile who sought and trafficked children to the Sydney VIP pedophile ring based in King's Cross boy brothels. Houston was named multiple times to the Wood Royal Commission. These children were sought by Hillsong from low socio-economic families with single mothers, parents in trouble with the law, and who had been brought to the attention of the Department of Children's Services. Helen Karapidis was ritually murdered days following her abduction during an evening church service in a secret room that overlooked the congregation at Hillsong Church, Young Street, Waterloo, Sydney, Australia. 2 children aged 6 and 8 witnessed Helen Karapidis' ritual murder and reported this to police. The children later won a New South Wales victim compensation claim in court on the basis of witnessing Helen Karapidis' murder in Hillsong Church. The children also witnessed several other children murdered at that same church. Police did not investigate the child witnesses' testimonies, did not conduct forensic investigations at Hillsong Church at Young Street, Waterloo. Instead, police targeted the child witnesses and their mother. Case discussion notes from a meeting held regarding this case at the Children's Hospital in Camperdown, Sydney, and attended by the Department of Children's Services, stated, quoting, Officer John Heslop said, "We have concerns about containing the mother." Police also targeted Helen's father and tried to frame him for Helen's abduction. This never stuck because it was a lie. 60 Minutes reporter Mike Munro left Channel 9 after the network failed to air this story. The 60 Minutes team recorded psychiatrist Dr. Anne Schlebom interviewing the 2 witnesses. Royal Commissioner James Wood then slammed Dr. Schlebom and dismissed her report, which supported the child witnesses. Judge Patricia Patty Bergen was promoted to Supreme Court after tearing apart genuine victims, witnesses and their testimonial evidence at the Wood Royal Commission. The mainstream media contributed to the cover-up of Helen Karapidis' murder at Hillsong Church by refusing to report the truth and by lying in print about the case and reporting terrible untruths about Helen's father. One of the child witnesses to Helen's ritual murder at Hillsong Church is spending this Christmas in prison. He was recently arrested immediately after his mother spoke with Helen Karapidis' family and told them for the first time what became of their little girl. He was charged for defending himself after a gang of thugs attacked him. When the victim's barrister phoned New South Wales Police for information to the charges, New South Wales Police allegedly told the barrister to fuck off. And then the writer of this article says, we'll keep you posted regarding how the police handle this case. It may be time for us to send the New South Wales Police Commissioner, Scipione, a few Christmas cards. It is an anniversary time for the greatest perversion of justice Australia has never seen or heard. Christmas time, December the 22nd, 1988, when Helen was disappeared, abducted, and then ritually sacrificed. At that time of year, I believe this article was printed in 2016. We have covered this before on our previous channel, which has since been terminated, as you know. Now, to give you some background, the Royal Commission into the New South Wales Police Service, also known as the Wood Royal Commission, was a royal commission held in the state of New South Wales, Australia, between 1995 and 97. The Royal Commissioner was Justice James Rowland Wood. The terms of reference were to determine the existence and extent of corruption within the New South Wales Police. Specifically, it sought to determine whether corruption and misconduct were systemic and entrenched within the service, and to advise on the process to address such a problem. In 1995, the Commission received letters patent widening the terms of reference to include investigating the activities of organised paedophile networks in New South Wales, the suitability of care arrangements for at-risk minors, and the effectiveness of police guidelines for the investigation of sex offences against minors. So this is what Hillsong has grown into. The formula for a successful church: child molesters, child sacrifice, and the good old standby blackmail. If one is aware of the facts, and this has been out in the public for some time, why would the Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia admire the son of the founder of Hillsong? Now here are some of the online reports about the, it says the Hillsong Church founder investigated for not reporting. So this is about Brian Houston, the current leader of the Hillsong Church. His father, Frank Houston, was the founder of Hillsong. Frank Houston, born in New Zealand, which New Zealand has been called a pedophile ring fronting as a nation. So on the 21st of November in 2018, in its latest statement, dated the same date, Hillsong writes, "It is abundantly clear through available evidence that the victim was an adult in mid-30s when Hillsong Church and Brian Houston became aware of the abuse, and the victim did not want the matter reported to the police." And then it says inside Justin Bieber's Hillsong Church child abuse cover from the Mirror in the UK. So another quote from July the 27th, 2017. "But Hillsong has also faced accusations that it acts as a cult, as well as allegedly having attempted to cover up the child abuse allegations levelled against its founder's father, the author Emmeline Saunders." Again, it was Brian Houston who founded Hillsong. Yeah, because he used to preach, if you like, at Sydney Town Hall throughout the 80s. And I think then it was known as a different name, so it evolved into Hillsong, but certainly the founder was Frank Houston. Another coverage of it in 2016. Hillsong and pedophilia cover-ups galore down under. So the question is, why is Scott Morrison protecting Hillsong's pastor Brian Houston? The founder of Hillsong Church, Brian Houston, spoke in the witness box during the Royal Commission on Child Sex Abuse. He told the Commission he learned of his father's pedophilia in 1999. but in his view it was up to the victim to report their abuser to the police. How sick is that? And this is all from the internet, covering the relationship between Scott Morrison and Brian Houston. The PM remains mute as his mentor, Pentecostal pastor Brian Houston, is investigated for covering up child sexual abuse. And so what they're saying is that Scott Morrison demands that Muslim leaders take responsibility for their community's criminal behaviour. In his maiden speech, current Prime Minister Scott Morrison referred to evangelical Christian and Hillsong Church leader Brian Houston as his mentor, and he thanked Houston for his support and encouragement. So Yah writes, and it goes into more quotes from the internet. While Morrison no longer attends Hillsong, he does attend Horizon Church, which is in the Sutherland Shire, and before that it used to be called Shire Live, and I actually walked past it in it was February the 2nd, 2018. It was the day after we arrived back from Manila, and Yara and I went for that famous drive, ending up down at Stanwell Tops, and I, in my inevitable fashion, had to go and find a bathroom somewhere, and I was told it was near the public library. Anyway, I walked past what was Shire Live then, and that was the church that has since changed its name to Horizon, which Scott Morrison still attends. And it is affiliated with the Australian Christian Churches, the Australian branches of the Assembly of God. So again from the internet, in 2015, Brian Houston was censored by the Child Abuse Royal Commission for failing to report his father Frank Houston to police for the alleged sexual abuse of children in his church. On Monday, 3 years after his censure, New South Wales Police confirmed that Brian Houston is being investigated by them after complaints that he failed to report, and it goes on, revealing the allegations in the interest of the institution's reputation. So this was May 2018. Catholic Archbishop Philip Wilson was found guilty in a New South Wales court of concealing child sexual abuse. And then the survivor said after the verdict, "I think this will now open the doors for other jurisdictions to start looking at trying to prosecute people who deliberately look after their institution and literally throw children to the wolves." So it appears that Prime Ministerial mentor Brian Houston and the Hillsong Church may have deliberately looked after their institution and thrown children to the wolves. The current police inquiry will pursue this possibility. So this is outside of the witnesses that came forward at the Wood Royal Commission, they being the ones who watched the ritual sacrifice of little Helen Karapidis in 1988. So Morrison went so far as to claim that in his own religious community, his pastor would know if members were behaving offensively and criminally. So there has been no comment on this situation from Scott Morrison. His lack of comment would not be as significant were it not for the fact that immediately after the most recent attack on citizens going about their daily business in Bourke Street, Melbourne, the Prime Minister called on the Muslim community, in particular spiritual leaders. He called on them to take responsibility for their community members and identify those among them likely to behave in ways that threaten others. Morrison went so far as to claim that in his own religious community, his pastor would know if members were behaving offensively and criminally. Yes, this is the hypocrisy of the situation. So, again, this is from the internet. This claim is astoundingly false. Morrison and his pastor must have been aware for some time of Frank Houston's alleged crimes against children and his son Brian Houston's efforts to conceal those crimes. The longevity, number and extent of crimes against children in Christian communities far exceed crimes perpetrated by offenders from Muslim communities against citizens in public spaces. Yet Morrison makes no such demands for responsibility and accountability from his faith group. Further, not only is Morrison silent on the more general failure of Christian communities to confront child sexual abuse, it is his mentor that he is protecting. That kind of protection is very close to home, far too close to home for a Prime Minister. We have seen repeatedly the failure of Christian communities of all persuasions to act on the horrific abuse of thousands upon thousands of children in their care. Now again, I'm reading this from articles that Yah has taken publicly available from the internet, and it occurs to me that there is an agenda here. However, because we know of the abuse that does go on within Muslim communities against children, and again, it's all kept hidden, and you know, it's the pot calling the kettle black. However, in this climate, it is the kettle that is being roasted, if you like. All right, so you can read that now. Bottom line is the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says Houston is his mentor, and he's been silent. And yes, questions asked of the Prime Minister, you can read those, stop them if you want to. It's all a dig at Scott Morrison, but genuine questions. But again, don't forget the agenda behind all of this. Now, the former minister, this is Yah's work, the former minister, Malcolm Turnbull, a lawyer, despicable lawyer, and yes, he was responsible for winning a legal matter in court, which allowed pornography to then flood into Australia. And Yah says, odd, he's also a member of the same group of Satana escapees. And yet another Prime Minister spent years in higher education at Sydney University, where satanic rituals have been going on for a very long time. And then Nicole Kidman's father was reported by a whistleblower to have been deeply involved, and that whistleblower was indeed Fiona Barnett, and she has blown the lid off a lot. These are the headlines regarding Nicole Kidman's father, Anthony Kidman. Anything regarding Ninth Circle, take with a grain of salt. That comes from an avenue that is totally not to be believed by anything that they write. However, the point is that this is out there in the public venue. Right, so yes, you can read all that about Anthony Kidman, because yesterday Barnett released her own theory about Kidman's death. The main perpetrator of my child's sexual abuse, Anthony Kidman, is dead after I filed formal complaints accusing him of the rape, torture and murder of children in an exclusive Sydney pedophile ring. As a child victim of mind control, I feel he's been sacrificed for failing to adequately program me. So this is all happening in, what was it, 2014-15 when Kidman died. Barnett on the stage 2015-2016. So it's a decade after the Wood Royal Commission that was formed to investigate this pedophile ring and the corruption of the New South Wales Police Force. Yes, she goes on that Kidman was responsible for ensuring that I never disclosed pedophile ring activities that I witnessed as a child. She continued, he failed. News of Kidman's death impacted me, someone who has undergone intense treatment. I know that there are other victims of Kidman's crimes out there who are perhaps not as far along the healing path as I am. I anticipate that the news of Kidman's death may have a serious impact on these victims. A perpetrator's death can even trigger suicidal ideation. My complaints last month to the Australian Child Abuse Royal Commission, so this is a separate commission from the James Wood Commission back in the 90s, detailed 2 incidents in which Kidman subjected me to horrific physical and sexual assault. But there are even more serious crimes against children that I witnessed Kidman commit as a member of the elite Sydney pedophile ring. Those complaints have gone to the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels. Now, over to Yah's work, far more interesting. That's the backdrop to everything and this gross evil PowerPoint and Scott Morrison's connection to it. So, in the top left there, we have the birth of Donald Trump on the 14th of June 1946, and then the birth of Scott Morrison, 13th of May, 5/13/1968, 8,004 days or 1143 weeks. The 8004 in the Hebrew Concordance is Salem, which is Jerusalem. In years, that's what 1143 weeks or 8004 days is. Years, 21.914213. The 2191 in the Hebrew Concordance is little. Now this is, you can follow this. 2191 in the Hebrew Concordance means little. In the Greek Concordance, 2191 means vipers. Now the second part, the last part of the number, the 4213, this is the years. From the Hebrew Concordance, hello, look at this, from 2191, little. 4213 in the Greek Concordance is drink Jesus' blood. The middle time span is the 14th of June 2012 until the end, Saturday the 8th of February 2020. The elapsed time is 2,795 days or 399 weeks. The 399 is the fourth beast from Daniel in Daniel 7:23. So we've got Daniel 7:19 and Daniel 7:23. In years, it is 7.65245221. Found in 1st Chronicles, the 7652 is from 1st Chronicles 5:13. The 7652 is from 7651 and the word 7. So we sent the message letter to Trump through the Facebook, which was marked red. It was June the 13th, the evening before his birthday, June the 14th, 2012. So measuring to Julian day 2458888, which is, as you know, the 8th of February 2020. Again, 7.652 years, found in 1st Chronicles 5:13. 5:13, Scott Morrison's birthday, May the 13th. The 7652 is actually the concordance number for the word Sheba, which comes from 7651 and is the word 7. We want you to really grasp the ties here, the synchronicities between these two men. Now, at the top right here, the time span is Scott Morrison's birthday, the 13th of May, 1968, until the time we sent the letter to Trump. It was here, the 14th of June, 2012. So elapsed time is 16,103 days or 2,300 weeks and 3 days, which means to look at something amazing. Now, the top left box, where you've got the 8004 days, meaning Salem or Jerusalem, and the tie to Trump, between Scott Morrison, so this is the bottom box now on the right, time span between Scott Morrison's birthday, 13th of May, 1968, until the 6th of December, 2017. Well, what's the big deal about that? That is the day that Trump declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. In weeks, it's 2586 weeks, and it means smoke, burning, Jerusalem. Revelation 18:9 to 18:19 So it's Revelation 18:9 to 18 and Revelation 19:3, Jerusalem burning. However, the 6th of December 2017 was the eve of the attack on Pearl Harbor, December the 7th, 76 years before. So what Yah wants to highlight here, we see that Trump and Morrison reveal little vipers, highlighting the 2191 in the Greek concordance, vipers, exposes the Hebrew concordance 4213, which points back to 2191, also meaning little or few. Yah says, therefore, the Rothschild cult intends to destroy Israel, start World War III, to kill all life, to stop Christ, the Samson option. Why? Only they believe that Christ is back. Protocol number 14, we shall forbid Christ. And it has failed, and will so they failed to forbid Christ and will destroy the earth of all life. That's their goal. Not going to happen, but that's their goal. Yes, so the message was sent by us, and Mark just read, and it was June the 13th. So the next day was his birthday, June the 14th. And in the message, we offered him a checkmate to announce Christ. And naturally, he would have ignored it. And today he's caught like a fly in a honey trap. Allegations and documents filed named Trump and Epstein, now dead, in the case of Katie Johnson, a 13-year-old girl brutally raped. She had 4 encounters with Trump in 1994, according to the documents, which are all part of the public record and were filed, later withdrawn through threats to her family and herself. But she describes the brutal rape by Trump in 1994, which was really interesting because it was December 1993 that he married his second wife, Marla Maples. But Yah says that Australia is way ahead of this Satan trap. Almost all politicians have been trapped by either child pornography or sacrifice or some other evil. And we see that the grand prize is Australia, being the holy city. Now, drawing our attention back to the 2191 and the 4213 within the same number, many will recall how I revealed the 12,000 furlongs was deliberately mistranslated in its measure. 12,000 furlongs is 12,000 times 660 feet, which is 1,500 miles per side. So 1,500 miles square, the holy city. But being the text was Greek, and the 12,000 should have remained stadia, and the measure of one stadia is 606.9 feet, so it's significantly smaller than a furlong, the feet in a furlong. So that means that the sides of the holy city, 4 square, are not 1,500 miles, but are 1,379.3181 miles each side. And it is proven, just as the 1.914213 years in the measuring of time, this time it's the measure of distance, because the 1379 in the Hebrew concordance is border, and the Greek concordance, 3181, is also border. And likewise, the Trump-Morrison numbers reveal the same phenomenon. So just going over, revising the Morrison date of birth, 5/13, May the 13th, 1968. He's 8,888 days younger than myself. And 1 Chronicles 5:13, as you all know, is a key genetically of my family members. One word yet to be revealed was Sheba, and it was numbered 7652. And you can see there the verse, and their brethren of the house of their fathers were Michael and Meshullam and Sheba and Jerai and Yakan and Zia and Heber, 7. Again, reiterating, Trump declared the US Embassy moved to Jerusalem December the 6th, 2017. 76 years previous to that was the eve of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Again, the number 8004 days is Salem or Jerusalem. And the last four digits of that number, 7.652, 4521. 4521 in the Greek concordance is Sabbath from Hebrews 7676. And Jesus said he was the Sabbath. The word Sabbath in the KJV is found 115 times. The simple gematria for the name Golightly is 115. But the translators of the KJV 1611, all Freemasons, used a lowercase s for Sabbath as an insult to Jesus, and Son of God became Son of Man, lowercase. Matthew 12:8, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day, lowercase. So just going back, reiterating about the world order, and Obama is a Muslim homosexual mass murderer born in Kenya. His wife Michelle is a male, and yes, they all hate white people. All the things that Hillary did, Obama organised for Hillary Clinton to ignore the attack on the US Embassy in Libya, resulting in the overrunning of the embassy by extremists, and this ended the benevolent good works of Gaddafi. It's all tied in. That's when the ambassador Christopher Stevens was murdered. It was all, he knew too much, obviously. Rothschild establishing a central bank, and the death of Gaddafi, who was an honourable man, since he was financing African states with gold and creating irrigation programs for farming. Libya under Gaddafi was a kingdom paradise. Yah says our children are the target for enslavement on a scale unprecedented in history. If you take a scalpel to any social program, governments foist onto the people like a boil, lancing the pus will expose a cowering Cain offspring terrified by the light of truth. Our skies are saturated with chemicals on the pretense of climate change, aluminium oxide particles, arsenic, and you can read all about it, ending with mold spoils, the mycoplasma, nano, aluminium coated fiberglass, nitrogen trifluoride known as chaff. It goes on and on. I'm not going to read it all. I'll just, you can stop these and read them for yourselves when you want to. And yes, water wherever possible contains a chemical cocktail designed to kill over time and cause diseases that cause slow health issues to develop. The medical harvest in the trillions of dollars. And yes, this is the conversation with the guy at the water board. We covered this in our previous upload just recently. Here it is, about receiving the report on the catchment areas, and different for the elite areas versus the areas where poorer, older people are.
The box in red are the deadly chemicals. None are found in the Turak water or the surrounding areas where the rich people live. You have the resources to establish the holy city.
Yes,
Our skies can be a no-fly zone for chemical spraying. Fresh water is as near as 1,200 feet from the beach. In Hawaii, water is drilled 1,200 feet from the sea. The rock filters the salt, leaving perfect water for human use. In Victoria, wells on farms within 2 kilometres near Sales, Victoria, the sheep and cattle live 70% longer and the sheep predominantly produce twins. Farmers are targeted by pine gap and harp to control rain. All we have to do is drill wells. The water under Australia is the Artesian Basin, 600,000 square miles of pure, clean water. Simply drilling water anywhere shown in the next slide, the water is pure and clean, held in reserve for 20,000 years.
The great Australian basin, the Artesian basins, and the key there, the intake area being the orange, concentration of springs, the direction of flow, structural ridges, etc. Yes, so it covers 22% of Australia and is our most reliable source of water. It has an estimated capacity of 8,700 trillion megalitres. The basin is situated in Queensland, the top of New South Wales, the corner of the Northern Territory and South Australia. As Yah says, it was created by God for the holy city. It was created by sediment sagging and land around lifting caused by the Mars collision, the flood of Noah. And it's one of the largest in the world. It's made up of sandstone, siltstone and mudstone aquifers. And the map shows the intake area where water enters the aquifers. The water then flows towards the other end, springs, or is sucked up by bores somewhere along the way. So yes, going over Yah's meeting of this man in 1997, he was sent to Pine Gap, and he looked very old. He was really sick. Yah said, I met him after he was discharged. In his opinion, he was sent away to die, but he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, punishable by jail if he disclosed the secrets at Pine Gap. He talked for a long period of time. He said that as I was establishing a clinic on Hoddle Street, Melbourne, to heal people, he wanted to tell me what they were doing at, or are doing at Pine Gap. He said there were around 10,000 permanent employees, all underground. By simply counting the heads of lettuce via delivery from Alice Springs, he was able to confirm the figure by the delivery each week. He said that the government had drilled an 8 kilometres deep hole. Below it is a vast sea of water that connects to the ocean via an opening in the Great Australian Bight. He said all of the ships in the world could easily be at anchor in it. The area is so vast. He said the shape of the rock formed a giant woofer, and with the antenna 8 kilometres deep, it sets up a low frequency that works in conjunction with HAARP in Alaska, along with ships at sea, to control the weather over Australia that virtually affects the world's weather. Australia was becoming a desert, driving the farmers broke and the banks foreclose. As I was writing, the internet was cut off this computer. Obviously, my searching the latitude and longitude of Pine Gap was being monitored and had hit a nerve. So it all has to do with HAARP in Alaska, instrumental in weather control. The 8,000 metres deep antenna passes through the sea into the magma, and Australia is caused to vibrate, sending the massive pulses into the magma. As the air under the continent is like a giant balloon, therefore vibrate the air above Australia, sends a pulse straight down. It vibrates the internal sea, it vibrates the magma, and sends a wave of vibration to be amplified by HAARP off the sea of the coast of Japan, or Indonesia's Aceh tsunami, Japan's Fukushima tsunami, or the child harvesting quake of Haiti. In the following slide, I measured from the altar to the Lord to HAARP in Pine Gap, the dead centre of Australia, and the 8,000 metre deep antenna, which is a giant woofer vibrating the magma. We see HAARP causing the heated air vibrations directly vibrates the Australian continent. And Yes, under Pine Gap, a vast enclosed body of water, an underground inland sea under Australia. And the magma directly under this vast body of water vibrates the magma. So Australia is raised area of rock with the hollow area below sealed off like a giant dinner plate, something like a huge capsule with a small opening to the sea through the Great Australian Bight. And here's the measurement, and yes, you can see the length of the three sides there, total area, that's in the little box at the top there, 18,393.1 nautical miles. 1839 in the Greek concordance means scatter abroad in foreign lands, and in Hebrew become insane or bewitched. And the 972 of the area in square nautical miles, meaning mighty and violent. And the three legs on the right there from Tugum, the triangulation there, Pine Gap to Tugum, is the length of, it's the red line, we're looking at the 1037 nautical miles. And in the Greek means deep, depth of the sea, mystery, deep thing pertaining to touching, measure, hello. So the Great Australian Bight was formed when Mars collided with the North Pole, causing a 12,000 foot deep sea, dumping all the water off Mars onto the Earth, and it's known as the Flood of Noah around 2141 BC. And the collision pushed magma out through what is now known as Antarctica. The molten magma, now because it's being literally projectile vomited into space, cooled in the minus 454.4 degree temperature, and cooling the magma, forming the moon and the vast circular craters. Remember the porridge and the blips of bubbles in the centre. The south coast of Australia was pushed up several hundred feet, forming the Great Australian Bight of sheer cliffs. Yah says, I flew a light biplane over it when I was 18 years old. I knew then what had occurred to form this 300-mile long cliff.